Hello.
Hello.
How are you feeling?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Great.
Hello, everyone.
You have been acting for over 30 years now, and I looked it up on the IMDb. It's 262 acting credits and counting, which is amazing. But when I look at this body of work, the first thing that always springs to my mind is, how did everything get started? Do you still remember the first moment when you decided, I want to become an actor, the first audition you went to, the first time you stepped in front of a camera? Can you tell us something about that?
Well, my very first ever professional job was on the very first season of a TV show called 21 Jump Street. So that's going a ways back. I actually had to be introduced, well, we introduced ourselves. The star of that show was Johnny Depp. And I first met Johnny when he had to introduce me as Johnny, because I didn't know who he was. So that was 1987 was my very first show. And that was 21 Jump Street, yeah.
And then, what I find interesting, one of the first, I think it was not the very first, but one of the first films you made is called Cadence, and it was made by Charlie and Martin Sheen. So, how was that? I mean, both Johnny Depp and Charlie Sheen, when we think about this, at that point in their career, were also very small actors compared to what they're now.
Right.
But for me, the idea of stepping in front of the camera, doing the thing, you still remember the first roles that you played, what you did in these shows and movies?
Yeah, I actually do remember back then. I actually remember those more than I remember stuff that I've done over the last 15 to 20 years. I think just because they were the first things that started my career, they all kind of are embedded in my brain. Because I remember my very first Western was a movie called Unforgiven. Mm-hmm. And I remember every day on that set with Clint Eastwood and Morgan Freeman and Gene Hackman. It just left a huge impression with me. So, yeah, I remember. But those are the moments that I really remember the most.
And I think every actor has the type of scenes that you love to play, or the stuff where you say, not my cup of tea. What is that for you?
Well, I think for me, I think flawed heroes are probably the most interesting to play. When people have the capability of doing great things, but are hindered by something that haunts them, and I think that's what makes the most interesting characters. Now, I'm not saying that those are the characters I've always played. Mm-hmm. But those are the ones that I strive and I try to look for.
Mm-hmm. And I saw a little film called Detective Night very recently, and it stars one of, I think, all of our childhood heroes, Bruce Willis. And you had one line directed at him, and I remember this, where you looked at Bruce Willis and just said, "Fuck you." How is it to look Bruce Willis in the eye and tell him to fuck himself?
Yeah, it was, yes, I remember doing those trilogies of movies because they were those were his very final movies that we did together. Yeah, I agree with you. It was interesting because I had done a couple of films before that Bruce and I did together as well. And working with him was really interesting because of his icon status, as far as, for me, John McCain is a character, you talk about characters I'd like to play, that would be one of them, someone with that bit of that action hero background with a lot of snappy dialogue. So he was a man that I absolutely admired, and to share the screen with him was really interesting for me, especially since it was the last movie he'll ever make.
Yeah, and that is, next question is a really tough one. I think the toughest one I've ever asked here on stage, but it's one that I really care about and I really want to know. I mean no harm by this question at all, but I'm so interested in hearing firsthand how it was to work with Bruce Willis on his final movies. Did you know what was going on? Were you noticed in advance? How did it play out?
Well, my very first movie with Bruce was right before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So I was shooting a movie with Bruce in February of 2020 in Atlanta, Georgia, and everything seemed fine. Like, he seemed fine. Mm-hmm. He would always wear an earpiece to get his lines just because his memory was not great. But he was there, like he was present. And unfortunately, in those movies that you're talking about, which we shot 2 years later, I guess, right? Maybe even less. It was unfortunately, it was time for him to step back and just be with family, and because I would imagine that those movies that you saw were really, really hard to edit together because he couldn't, it was hard to do scenes with Bruce, which I ended up doing a lot with the script supervisor because Bruce just couldn't remember, and just you could just sort of see all of that deteriorating, getting worse as we went. So to tell you the truth, I was really happy when I heard that he was retiring, because I felt that there's no way that his family and friends should be letting him do what he was doing anymore.
Okay, that was a toughie. Let's crank up the funometer maybe a little, because for an actor, I mean, you have been stabbed with multiple pointy things, you have been electrocuted, you have been shot. I think you have been killed very, very many times, and I think every actor has. But is there something, I mean, you have been killed by Jason, you've been killed by Ghostface. Is there some character death that you love the most, that
For
you
me,
have to
or
film
just
in your career?
in my career? Let's see. I've been stabbed multiple times. I think maybe my death in Scary Movie was pretty fun, with not knowing that the ghost face was behind me up on the balcony. I thought that was kind of an iconic way to go. I guess, I haven't had a really weird... Well, I guess I was electrocuted in Freddy versus Jason, right? That was a pretty iconic way to go. Ken Kersinger taking me out as Jason Voorhees. Yeah, those are ones that are the most memorable to me. The rest are just, stabbings, gunshots, stuff like that.
Quick reminder to the audience, there is another microphone right in the middle of the aisle. We sadly only have like 10 minutes left, so if there is someone who wants to ask a question to LOCHLYN, please, the stage is yours.
I have a question, and where did you get your inspiration for the creepy character in Riverdale?
Oh, what was my inspiration for my character?
Yeah.
Which character? My Hal Cooper character or my Black Hood character?
Black Hood.
Okay. Well, here's something. I never actually knew that I was the Black Hood. So throughout that whole season 2 of the Black Hood killing people, we as cast members always had to guess who it was. I didn't know that I was the Black Hood until the audience found out when I did the Cooper home movie in episode 21, episode 21 of season 2, when I showed Betty and Alice my home Cooper movie with me as a 9-year-old boy. That is the episode that I found out that I was the Black Hood. So then season 3 was me in the prison as the Black Hood, and Betty would come and visit me all the time to ask me questions about why she's so dark, where these dark thoughts come from. So I actually enjoyed that the most out of all the characters I play, by both characters, Hal Cooper and the Black Hood. And I guess I always played him as a victim of a brainwashed 9-year-old boy, because to me it's like they didn't give him a chance to be who he could have been, because they brainwashed a 9-year-old boy into believing that he needed to purge people of Riverdale that had sinned, and that's what his family did and their family before them. And so I always kind of felt bad for Hal Cooper becoming that man who he was, because if it wasn't for him being brainwashed as a 9-year-old boy, he may have turned out to be the mayor of Riverdale. I don't know. So that's kind of how I built my backstory to become from Hal Cooper to being the Black Hood.
Awesome. Do we have another question from the audience? Yes, please.
Yes, hi. We know each other. I have a question. Charmed is the only series I know with you so far. Now I would like to know how it was there on the set, and do you still have or had contact with the actors on the set for a longer period of time?
Was it Riverdale again?
No, it was Charmed.
Oh, on Charmed.
If you're still in contact
Charmed,
with them.
yes. So how was my time on the show?
Yes.
Is that what you mean? So I was shooting the movie Scary Movie at the time that I got a call asking if I wanted to be part of the show Charmed. And I actually had hesitations at first because I wasn't sure. And I have to tread lightly now when you say things like this, but having 3 females as the lead of the show, I always thought, okay, are they going to be, do they get along? Are they on time? Like, as I would most cast members, it's just, I'm sorry to say, but it's just the female cast members just take a bit longer to kind of get ready and to process. And that was my only concern. When I got to the set and when I started the show, it actually turned into being just an amazing place to be. The girls were more than open and fun and professional, and so I really enjoyed my time on Charmed. I was actually sad to see the character of Jack Sheridan go. I thought he would have been a great addition to the run of the show. But I guess Prue had to move on, Had to move on to Antonio Sabato Jr. or whoever came in.
And the second part of the question was if you're still in contact with the actors and actresses from the show.
Shannon I see every once in a while. Shannon came on to do on Riverdale when Luke Perry passed away. Shannon came on to be the character of the lady who was stranded on the side of the road, the story of how Fred Andrews passed away on the show. And so Shannon came in to play that as an homage to Luke. So I got to see her then. I talked to Holly Marie a little bit, and every once in a while I see Alyssa, but I wouldn't say that, we have backyard barbecues together or anything, just more acquaintances, But they're lovely. They're all really lovely. So that was a really cherished memory for me doing that show. Thanks so much.
Do you have
anyone else? You want to know my favorite color?
Oh, okay. Hello, it's such an honor to be able to ask a question to you. I will try to don't have such a German English so you can understand
Oh,
me.
you sound great.
You had such an incredible career and worked with such incredible actors, and you're such an incredible actor yourself. We just heard that one of the first series you are was 21 Jump Street, like the original one, the real one. And it's been a while, so how did the industry and how did your work day change from like 21 Jump Street to Riverdale? It can't be the same work environment or the same job, actually. How did that change for you?
Well, you know, I think the business in general and the idea of creating characters and story is still the same as it was when I started out. It's just my process is different, you know, after being someone who's been in the business for over 30 years. But I do remember, I'll never forget that very first day standing on the set of 21 Jump Street, and I just couldn't believe that I was being paid as an actor. And a guy tapping me on the shoulder and said, "Hey man, I'm going to grab a Coke from craft service. Can I get you anything?" And I said, "No, I'm good." And he looked at me and he said, "Oh, hey, I'm Johnny." And I went, "Oh, hi Johnny, I'm LOCHLYN." And I do remember him walking away to go to craft service. And to this day, I still remember thinking to myself, I'm not sure what a movie star is, but I think I just met one. And I'll never forget that, because Johnny Depp back then just had this absolute coolness to him, and he was very, very handsome. And just I think if I was a woman, I would say that the man oozed sex appeal. That is probably what most females thought of Johnny Depp back in those 21 Jump Street days. But as far as the process and stuff about just where I am in my career, again, I think it just comes down to a confidence level, and the fact that from those 21 Jump Street days I've gone on to play sort of broader, bigger roles, bigger characters, and but the process is all the same. It's just about creating characters, whether you're in the movie for 5 pages or if you're in the movie for 120 pages. It's all about telling a story, creating character, and entertaining people that love movies. So nothing's changed there at all. Thank you.
What do you think is the best way to watch movies? In the cinema, on Blu-ray, streaming? What is your preferred way?
Well, I mean, you know, the cinema experience is still the way to watch feature films, right? I mean, could you imagine? Let's just pick out Lord of the Rings, right? Is Lord of the Rings the same experience at home as it is on a 40-foot screen? I don't think so, right? And you know, they make great television now. Don't get me wrong. I think it's great that people can stay at home, and everyone has big screen televisions now, and you can be entertained by good stories. But sometimes there are moments when movies should be watched like movies, and you know, you're shared with other people in an audience, and just that energy and the big screen and the sound. And so I still cherish those times, especially since it's, for me, I've been with my wife for 34 years, so those are always really good date night excuses for us too, so I enjoy that part of it. But yeah, I think that I think it's still important that they make movies that people can enjoy at a movie theater.
Yeah, totally agree. The sound of crackling popcorn, the screens of the cell phones of all the other people. No, but it's perfect. Do we have another question maybe from you guys? I think we have time for 2 more. So if you want to fill these slots, please feel free to do so.
Jump on up. Don't be shy. I have lots of answers. I'm very wise now that I'm in my 50s. You want to know anything about climate change?
Let's do that tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah.
Hi. This microphone's very low down. 1 second. Hi. I always like to ask the question, we've talked about what you have done. I'd like to know, kind of a two-part question, what you're up to now in the sense that A, what projects have you got, upcoming shows, and B, what you're doing here in Austria. Do you fly in, come here for a weekend and leave? Are you planning a tour? Are you going to Wien? Are you going to stay here in Wels? What your plan is for the next few days or so?
Okay, well, I'll answer the second question first. Yes, unfortunately, I do have to just leave right away, and I'm very disappointed about that because this is my first time in Austria, and I usually love to take these moments and these opportunities to enjoy different countries, to enjoy different culture, meet people of different cultures. So I definitely will come back, but I have to go back because I am finishing up the TV show Riverdale. We just have one more episode, and then that is it for Riverdale in our 7 years. So kind of a bittersweet moment for that. But I definitely plan on coming back to Austria and getting to see more of the city of Vienna and just exploring, which I love to do with my family. I usually bring my kids and wife on when I get to come and meet everyone at conventions. So I will be back, and thank you for having me. And the first question, well, I have a movie coming out with Julie Bowen from Modern Family and a girl named Kiernan Shipka. We have a movie for Blumhouse coming out soon called Totally Killer, which is a really, really fun script. It's got comedy in it with a slasher film element with a Back to the Future storyline as well. So I hope you guys dig that. It's coming out pretty soon called Totally Killer. And then I did a movie with Josh Duhamel and a few guys that just came out called Buddy Games 2. And I'm just finishing up Riverdale. And I did a show called Peacemaker. I don't know if you guys have seen Peacemaker yet, but I did that with James Gunn. So every day I've been on the phone begging James Gunn so that I could be in his Superman movie. So stay tuned. I'll let you know if my begging works. My groveling to James Gunn to let me. I tried the best I could to get in the last Guardians of the Galaxy movie. I pitched all my ideas while we were shooting Peacemaker, but obviously nothing came of it because I'm not in Guardians of the Galaxy. But I have really, really good pitches lined up for Superman, okay? So stay tuned.
We keep our fingers crossed. Ladies and gentlemen, give a big round of applause to the amazing LOCHLYN MUNRO.
Thanks, everyone.
Danke. Dankeschön.
Dankeschön.
Yeah. Woo!
And I knew that. I'm sorry. It's 4 o'clock in the morning in Canada for me right now, so my brain's a little fuzzy. But Dankeschön. Thank you so much, everyone.
Dankeschön. LOCHLYN MUNRO.